to order. Welcome to meeting number 54 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance. Pursuant to the order of reference of May 10th, 2022, the committee is meeting on Bill C-19, an act to implement certain provisions of the budget tabled in Parliament on April 7, 2022, and other measures. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of November 25th, 2021. Members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. Per the directive of the Board of Internal Economy on March 10th, 2022, all those attending the meeting in person must wear a mask except for members who are at their place during proceedings. I'd like to make a few comments for the benefits of the witnesses and members. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. For those participating by video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, and please mute yourself when you are not speaking. Interpretation for those on Zoom. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French. For those in the room, you can use the earpiece and select the desired channel. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. For members in the room, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand. For members on Zoom, please use the raised hand function. The clerk and I will manage the speaking order as best we can, and we appreciate your patience and understanding in this regard. Pursuant to the motion adopted in committee, on Thursday, May 9th, the committee will continue today with the clause-by-clause consideration of Bill C-19. We have witnesses from various departments that are here with us who will be able to answer questions as we move through the clauses of the bill. And members, just before we go to clause-by-clause on C-19, the clerk distributed two budgets for our pre-budget consultation travel. These are budgets for that travel. Last evening, you should have received them around 6:31 p.m. And so they should look something like this, members, for those. And we are looking for approval of those as the clerk has to bring them to the liaison committee. So looking for approval. Yep, looks like they're approved. Thank you very much for that. So we are now on clause 377, and you should have just received a this would be a new NDP 5, okay, a new NDP 5 amendment. And so I will go to MP Blakey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I just want to say thank you to the committee for having adjourned a little bit early in our last meeting to create some time in order to just get the wording right on this. Obviously, there's another complementary amendment to this one, but together the idea is that the Budget Implementation Act would create some pretty establish some pretty important authorities for the minister in respect of the express entry system. And it's something that we felt strongly, and I hope others around the table will as well, that there should be some checks and balances on that. And so the idea there was to ensure that these new categories for express entry would not be established without having a robust and obligatory public consultation process with some direction as to how that process ought to unfold. As I say, the kind of discretionary powers without this are considerable, and we've often heard the department and the minister talk about occupational categories, but in fact that's not in the legislation. The legislation just talks about groupings or categories of people. So I think this public consultation process is an important component in order to make sure that a government or a minister can't just kind of make these choices willy-nilly, if you'll permit the phrase, but that they have to be doing that in consultation with others and getting advice from people who have their feet on the ground and understand the labor market needs of Canada well as the situation of the folks who may well come under the express entry system and the special categories established by the minister. So the new amendment that I presented here is the first part of a two-part effort to establish that accountability through public consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Blakey. I did see a number of hands. I have MP Beach, MP Samari, MP Albus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Want to thank Mr. Blakey for his work, as well as echo his comments, thanking the committee for their patience and allowing some of this good work to happen. It shows how many people are working on many aspects of this BIA, including other colleagues that aren't necessarily on this committee and numerous staff and the like. And we're very happy where it landed and are happy to support this clause and the consequent clause that will be forthcoming.
Okay, thank you, PS Beach, MP Saint-Marie, then MP Albus.
Oui, merci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I was saying in the previous session, I will not be going forward with the amendments BQ 14 and 15. So NDP amendments will do the trick, I think. But I would like to ask Daniel, what's the difference exactly between the new amendment and NDP MPD 5? Because in the lower section, I think there are some changes. If he can explain to us what these changes are, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, MP Saint-Marie. MP Blakey, please, yes.
Sure. So I think the main change in NDP 5, vous allez voir que dans
You will see that in the original language, it's not the same in French.
and there was some language around an advisory committee, and that language has changed to language about a public consultation process, which is laid out rather specifically, I think, in the next amendment that we'll be presenting. So it's a little bit of a change in language, but I think that the spirit of that amendment is still very much the same. And I think that the next amendment does a good job of prescribing how that public consultation should unfold.
Merci.
Thank you. MP Albus?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And certainly the time that has transpired since the earlier meeting and today gave me a chance to kind of reflect a little bit. And, while I certainly have expressed concerns based on some of the testimony we heard that the government is essentially going to give the minister too much discretion in regards to establishing categories on whatever criteria that that particular minister, he or she, would want, because this will not always just apply to the current minister. It will apply to future ones. And I really didn't like the arbitrary design of the legislation. So I certainly appreciated that MP Blakey had sought to make an amendment. And the original amendment, where you would have a committee process, at first seemed to be a more ideal than just the minister deciding on a particular category with very little warning as to what he or she was thinking. So the problem, though, with that is that when you have a committee, you ask yourself, well, who's this committee consisting of? And if it's at the discretion of the minister, then it could be a committee of staff members. It could be a committee of Liberal supporters. It could be a committee of experts at large. And that may or may not be a good thing depending on the composition. But ultimately, if a minister was simply just to say, well, it's actually the committee that is the reason why I'm putting this group category together, that would be less than ideal, because ultimately I think what MP Blakey is looking for is a little more accountability. And if you just say, well, I'm doing this because they told me to, you're pointing the finger at someone else when you're the decision maker. So I do think that having some sort of consultation process, I think, is key, but the question is what that is. So with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask the officials that are present here today. Currently under the Immigration, Refugee, and Protection Regulations or Act, depending if it's IRPA or the regulations themselves, is the use of the term public consultation process defined?
Clerk, thank you for the question. We'll have to look into that. It's not offhand. I don't believe it is, but we'll have to look in and perhaps can get back to the committee.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll talk for a moment, Mr. Chair, because if it's not tabled, if it's not defined in the Act itself, then it converts to, and my understanding is, would be a dictionary. interpretation and, again, a consultation process. If it's ultimately decided by the minister what that form will take, I'd be very interested to see what the minister would believe that to be, because the word public and the word consultation, if you put 20 immigration consultants, I'm sure, in a room, Mr. Chair, you'd probably get 20 different opinions, maybe even more. So I see that MP Blakey has signaled that he might have an answer to my quandary, and I would certainly appreciate him enlightening me.
Thank you, and I'm going to give full credit to our immigration critic, Jenny Kwan, for her good work on this. I think Jenny probably shared some similar concerns about the vagueness of what a public consultation entails. So in the next amendment that I believe we'll be discussing, it makes modifications to the Budget Implementation Act in order to flesh out very specifically what public consultation would mean in the context of this specific provision. So, for instance, the next amendment states that for the purpose of establishing categories of eligible foreign nationals under subparagraph 10.3, etc., the minister must engage in a public consultation process with stakeholders, and then it names what those stakeholder groups ought to be. So that's to include provinces and territories, industry, unions, employers, workers, worker advocacy groups, settlement provider organizations, and immigration researchers and practitioners, to obtain information, advice, and recommendations in respect of the labor market conditions, including occupations expected to face shortage conditions, as well as on how categories can be formed to meet economic goals. It also stipulates that in the course of that public consultation process, that has to be based on written submissions. So it can't just be kind of informal verbal exchanges that the minister happens to have with some people and then says, we did it and it's done and isn't that great? There will be a documented there will be documentation for that consultation process. And then I believe the next clause also has a reporting requirement to Parliament on what categories of eligible foreign nationals issued from such a consultation process, and the selection criteria and the process applied for the establishment of those categories. So I definitely hear your concern. I think Jenny has heard your concern from afar, and I think has done a good job of clearly stipulating what this public consultation ought to look like so that it doesn't end up being the kind of pro forma, informal style consultation that we have too often seen take the place of a proper process.
Thank you, MP Blakey.
If I could just respond.
MP Albus.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I certainly just like to thank MP Blakey for the explanation. And just in future reference, if he had just said, flip the page over, Dan, I probably would have been able to read that. But I certainly appreciate him reading it out, because the people that are watching us, and believe me, Mr. Chair, there actually are people that watch us. So hello, people that are watching us. I appreciate you taking interest in C19. So I'm going to just again thank MP Blakey, and I think I'm more satisfied now that this is more of a public process because it has been defined, and I extend the thanks to his member.
And I might just add, Mr. Chair, that it was indeed for the people at home that I was preferring all of that detailed information. Of course, I know Mr. Albus is quite capable.
I know, I was enlightened. I was enlightened.
But I
Thank
didn't
all
want
of
anyone
you.
to miss a beat.
Yep, thank you, MP Blakey, and I also want to thank the legislative clerk for helping get this done and prepared and ready. And members shall the new NDP 5 carry.
Yes.
Recorded vote.
Recorded vote, clerk.
Man, come on.
Mr. Baker.
In favor.
Mr. Beach.
In favor.
Madame Châtel.
En faveur.
Mr. Sorbara.
Yes.
Mr. McDonald.
In favor.
Mr. Albus.
In favor.
Mr. Chambers.
En faveur.
Mr. Lawrence.
En faveur.
Mr. Stewart.
En faveur.
Monsieur Sainte-Marie.
En faveur.
Mr. Blakey.
En faveur.
Yeas pour 11, nays contre 0.
Carried. Okay, so members, Block 14 was withdrawn, and Block, do they have to withdraw, or it's been already been done? Okay, and Block 15 withdrawn. Okay, so shall clause 377 as amended carry?
On division.
Okay, carried on division. So we now are at new clause 377.1, and we have, we've got an amendment from the NDP, NDP 6, and the new NDP 6, and MP Blakey.
Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to motivate this amendment. But having just read the lion's share of it, I think committee members are well aware of its content, and so I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chair. Careful what you wish for, Dan.
All right, so shall the new NDP 6 carry?
Yes.
What are we voting on, Chair? Can you repeat it, please?
We have the new clause 377.1, and we have to the new clause 377.1, there's an amendment from the NDP. It's NDP 6, or the new NDP 6, and that is what we are voting on.
Yes. Could we have a recorded vote?
A recorded vote, please. Clerk, thank you.
Mr. Baker.
In favor?
Mr. Beach.
In favor. Or
Madame
en faveur.
Madame Chatel.
En faveur.
Monsieur Sorbara.
En favor.
Mr. McDonald.
En favor.
Mr. Albus.
En faveur.
Mr. Chambers.
En favor.
Monsieur Lawrence.
En favor.
Monsieur Stewart.
En favor.
Monsieur Sainte-Marie.
En faveur?
Et Monsieur Blakey.
En faveur.
Yeas pour 11, 11, nays contre 0.
Okay, carried. And I like the MP Saint-Marie's and MP Chatel's French there. And everybody else's was great. I know everybody's working really hard. Okay, there. Now we are members. There are no amendments submitted to clauses 378 to 455. Clauses 378 to 455 are all in Part 5 of the bill. Do we have unanimous consent to group them for the vote?
Monsieur le Président, on a adopté.
Mr. Chair, we adopted the new NDP 6, but the 377.1, we did not adopt that, so that should be with dissidents.
Merci, MP Sainte-Marie.
Thank you, MP Sainte-Marie.
From the legislative clerk. So the clause, the amendment is the clause itself. So it is all captured.
Oh, mille excuses. On apprend à chaque jour.
Apologies, you keep learning every day.
Oh, MP Blakey.
Consent. I think we could group the clause we're at up to clause 378, but I think there'll be some discussion around 379 as well as 381.
Okay, well, 378 was the first one, so we will, shall clause 378 carry.
Dissidence.
Okay, carried on division, and then shall clause 379 carry. Discussion. MP Blakey?
Again, with tribute to the work of my colleague Jenny Kwan, my plan is to oppose this particular clause, and the reason for that is because the government, projects certain service standards within citizenship and immigration, and one of the few accountability mechanisms that there are, and of course, I won't belabor the point too much, but all anyone has to do is tune into question period. They don't even have to do that. They could probably just go to the local coffee shop or hockey rink or wherever, and they're going to hear people talking about some of the very real frustrations that they've had with getting timely service from the immigration department, whether it's, you know, their permanent residency, whether it's citizenship, whether it's travel visas, whatever it happens to be. And one of the few modicums of accountability that there is for government, which clearly is insufficient already, is that there is an obligation for government to reimburse some of the fees that people pay to immigration under certain circumstances and when service standards aren't met. And my understanding of clauses 379 and consequently 381 is that these would absolve the government of its obligation to reimburse people when there have been extraordinary delays in processing their immigration requests. And we just simply feel that that's not appropriate. And that's why if members look at clause 379 and 381, what they'll see is that the coming into force date, if I'm not mistaken, is actually for 2017. And that's because it is deliberately going back in order to retroactively absolve government of its responsibilities. And so that's why I intend to vote no to this clause and would encourage other members of the committee to consider doing the same. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, MP Blakey. I do have MP Beach and then MP Albus.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to ask a question of officials, if they could just describe what the impact of deleting this clause would be.
Okay, officials.
I can tell you who's supposed to be speaking.
Yes. Okay. MP Beach, can you just repeat what you're looking for from the officials and officials?
Yes, I just no problem. I would just based off of the intention that Daniel or Mr. Blakey just described, if the officials could describe for us the impact of deleting this particular clause.
No, we have an official with us. Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chair, sorry for that. I was having some issues. So the 4 fees and questions are related to 4 services for which an exemption is being sought today from the Service Fee Act. These 4 services are very exceptional in nature. They mostly address a situation of inadmissibility or criminal record for an applicant. So these 4 fees are usually, as I said, exceptional. So processing times for these applications may vary from either a month to up to 92 or even 120 months in processing, because they require public servants to obtain information from various countries in terms of criminal records and to assess the applications accordingly. It's also highly dependent on applicants providing this information to us in terms of being able to process the application in processing times. So the issue at play is our inability to provide meaningful service standards and predictable service standards for these 4 specific fees.
Thank you, Ms. Chassé. And now MP Beach, you got that information, and I have MP Albus.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are going to be voting with the NDP on this. I think Mr. Blakey has laid out the argument.
I see no other hands. Okay. So shall clause 3...
I was going to do it in French, but...
Shall clause 379 carry?
Mr. Speaker, I got a hand.
I saw a hand with MP Beach.
Oh, actually, I think I just got my answer. Could I just ask, this is a little bit of a surprise for me, could I just ask the committee's indulgence for a 2-minute suspension?
Okay, we'll suspend for 2 minutes.
Thank you.
I see MP Beach's hand is up. MP Beach.
Oh, we're good to vote, Mr. Speaker. We'll be opposing.
Okay. Sure. MP Blakey.
Mostly, I guess this is just a request for information. My understanding is that the Citizenship and Immigration Committee sent a letter to us coming out of the, and so I don't know if it was received yet. I don't think it's been circulated, but it did actually recommend voting down these changes from the committee as a result of the process that we had initiated to split the bill and get the kind of subject expert recommendations of other committees. So we can maybe ask the clerk to verify if that had been sent or not. But my understanding is that these clauses were discussed at the Citizenship and Immigration Committee.
You are correct. It was circulated on Thursday, the 26th at 11:57 a.m. Thursday, the 26th. Okay, members, You may have missed that. Do you want to take another minute to take a look at that? So that was Thursday the 26th? No?
Mr. Chair,
Members are okay? Yeah, MP
Would-
Albus?
would you be okay just to read part of it into the transcript?
Well, I think members could just take a look at what they received.
Okay,
So-
well then I'll make my intervention then. So I just wanted to do Parliamentary Secretary Beach a favor and just tell him that if he opposes this, then he's actually voting against his own legislation. So he might want to support it.
Okay, MP Albus, thank you. I do see MP Samari's hand up. MP Samari?
Oui, donc.
Mr. Chair, we did receive the letter, and the part that corresponds to the relevant articles says that certain members have proposed to withdraw the articles 379 and 380. It was not a unanimous agreement, but of course I will defer to the arguments of my colleague Daniel on this.
Okay, yeah, we are going to go to a vote. So shall clause 379 carry?
Recorded vote.
Recorded vote, clerk?
Mr. Baker,
In favor.
Mr. Beach,
In favor.
Madame Chatel,
En faveur.
Mr. Sorbara,
En favor.
Mr. McDonald,
In favor.
Mr. Albus,
No.
Mr. Chambers,
No.
Mr. Lawrence,
No.
Mr. Stewart,
No.
Monsieur Sainte-Marie,
No.
Mr. Blakey.
No.
Yeas pour 5, 5. Nays contre 6, 6.
Okay, it's defeated. So members, we're moving to 380. And shall clause 380 carry? On division? Carried on division. And now to 381. Shall clause 381 carry?
No.
Members?
Nope.
Recorded vote.
Recorded vote. Clerk?
Mr. Baker,
In favor.
Mr. Beach,
In favor?
Madame Chatel,
En faveur.
Mr. Sorbara,
En favor.
Mr. McDonald,
In favor.
Mr. Albus,
Contre.
Mr. Chambers,
Contre.
Mr. Lawrence,
Contre.
Mr. Stewart,
Contre.
Monsieur Sainte-Marie,
Contre.
Mr. Blakey.
Contre.
Yeas pour 5, 5. Nays contre 6, 6.
Okay, it's defeated. So, members, that brings us to, we are at 382, and I believe so. There are no amendments from 382 to 455, and they are all in Part 5 of the bill. Do we have unanimous consent to bundle them for a vote?
Yes.
Those pertain to the Employment Insurance Appeals Board, just before we agree to that, because I think you'll find that certain members want to vote down the clauses on the EI Appeal Board. It may be useful to be able to group those together by UC.
Oui, juste une clarification.
Just a clarification, Mr. Chair.
Clerk?
The Employment Insurance Board.
So,
It's the appeal board, right?
yes, it's the appeals board you're asking about, Demby Blakey?
Yeah, that's right. So that's
Okay.
Division 32. It looks like
Yeah.
it starts at clause 454.
That is correct.
Okay. So we
Okay,
could
so
go up
let
to-
me rephrase what I just said. So, it's not that there are no amendments, it's just before we reach the Employment Insurance Appeals Board section, we would be able to go from 382 to 453, right? Yep, to 453. So if we were to group those members, looking for unanimous consent to be able to group those.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so from 382 to 453, those are grouped, and shall clauses 382 to 453 carry.
Debate? Can we debate them?
You want to debate all of them?
Yeah, those are not the EI ones. The EI is coming up after.
The EI is coming up after.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I missed that. Okay, so yes, we will group and on division, please.
Okay, carried on division. All right, so now we are moving members to 454. Okay, so we are at 454. Shall clause 454 carry? Okay, I see a hand up. MP
Wonder
Blakey?
if I might just make a proposal, Mr. Chair, and perhaps the legislative clerks could help us in determining from 454 on if all of the remaining clauses are part of Division 32. And if so, perhaps we could just group the remaining clauses and then deal with them as a group if there's no objection from anyone on the committee. The utility of that would be that I think it corresponds well to conversations that have been had around these reforms. And to put it succinctly, I think these reforms have not been very well received within many affected kind of stakeholder groups. And I think some of the concern, certainly on my part, for just voting down these provisions, was that I think while people were disappointed in the particular content of what was presented in the Budget Implementation Act, there was a high degree of excitement around changing the EI Appeals Board. And it's just that people wanted to get it right. And that's something that, we were hoping that the government would hear. I note that the minister did tweet just before this meeting, not only that she's interested in going back to the drawing board on some of these changes, but that she also committed in that tweet to presenting new legislation in the fall. And I think that was a major concern of stakeholders out there, that this not simply be voted down and go away, but that if it were to be voted down, that there was a clear commitment from the government that they would be bringing legislation back in the near term, so that this is not a discussion that dies with this particular Budget Implementation Act, but a discussion that continues in the life of this Parliament so that we can find a satisfactory reform to the EI Appeal Board. So given that the Minister is clearly on the public record at this point, committing to bring that legislation forward in the fall, I certainly think that I would be content to lump these provisions together and to vote no. Of course, if any member of the committee feels differently, they're welcome to say so, and we can deal with them clause by clause. But if that's a satisfactory outcome to other members of the committee, I'm sure it would save us a fair bit of time. And so that would be my proposal, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thanks. So we can discuss this as a whole, but we will have to go clause by clause, as there are amendments that we would have to address as we go through it.
If I may, on the procedure there, I wonder, because we would only be able to lump them together and vote either yes or no on that as a package, if the unanimous consent of members to proceed by lumping them together and having a single vote, if we could interpret that as meaning that anyone who had suggested amendments for these provisions would not move those in which case we would be okay. Certainly, if a member did want to move one of those amendments, I don't want to stop anyone from doing that, but the appropriate thing for them to do at that point would be to deny unanimous consent. If they provide unanimous consent, I think it would be fair to surmise that they don't intend to move those amendments.
Okay, thank you for that, MP Blakey. And yeah, that would be up to the members that have those amendments before us. And we do have hands up, and that member is MP Sainte-Marie, who does have a number of amendments in front of us. So MP Sainte-Marie, and then I've got MP Beach, and then MP Albus.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I fully agree with the proposal from Daniel. So taking all the clauses from the Division 32 and making them into a package. So, Mr. Chair, I also sent a motion, a notice of motion to members of the committee. The HUMA committee was actually studying Division 32, and the committee concluded by saying that it's not satisfactory. What we find under Division 32 has to be profoundly modified. So my amendments for Division 32 were actually intended as an offer, as an attempt to improve the bill. In this way. So if the government agrees to withdraw Division 32, then the government can come back with a bill that responds better to the needs of the targeted groups. I think that would be ideal, and that would correspond to the unanimous will of the HUMA committee. Experts on the EI Appeals Board came before us to this committee and let us know that Division 32, as it was not satisfactory. So I would like to reach out to Terry Beach to ask him if the government would be okay with withdrawing Division 32. If he's okay today with that, then we can move forward with Daniel's proposal. Labor unions came before us to tell us that it's not functioning, and experts from EI Appeals Board also told us that both the part that represents workers and employees told us that about Division 32. So I would say that that would be the right thing to do, taking it out of C19 with the knowledge that the minister will come back with a bill that responds better to the needs as expressed during the consultations that we have held when it comes to EI Appeals Board. Mr. Chair, I would like to also underline the exceptional work carried out by my colleague Louis Chabot, who is a Bloc MP who is part of the HUMA committee, who actually let us know that this was not functioning, and they were able to reach out to all involved parties when it comes to EI Appeals Board to convey this message. So on the HUMA committee, they were able to obtain consensus to say that it didn't make sense, that it had to be withdrawn, and witnesses appearing before that committee passed on the same message. So she did exceptional work, so I would like to tip my hat off to her. So I would like to thank also Daniel for the proposal, and Terry, thank you as well. When we had witnesses about this, talking about this division, that was the outcome. So if that goes through, that will also show that the government will also be making headway with this by withdrawing it first, but then coming back with something that responds in a better way to the needs expressed. So I would like to agree with Daniel's proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Merci, MP Sainte-Marie. And just before I go to MP Beach, MP Sainte-Marie, are you asking for the withdrawal of block amendments 16 to 23 that you would be okay with? Is that correct?
Tout à fait.
Yes, completely. If there is unanimous consent to regroup all the clauses under Division 32, and then as a block, if we can vote on that, yes, then I would be accepting that. Thank you.
Merci. Now, PS Beach.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank Mr. Blakey for his proposal and for Monsieur Sainte-Marie for his comments just now. We are in favor of this proposal, and we'll support unanimous consent. And pending any further surprises, this is my at least last planned interjection for today. And that being the case, I just want to say thank you to all the members of this committee and the substitutes that have served over the time. There has been a growing and tremendous appreciation from me personally for the amount of work that every member of this committee does. The staff that support you behind the scenes, both in the minnows, but also in the department and in, of course, in the opposition offices. Thinking back to, the public doesn't see the members sitting on endless briefings with officials, sometimes in the 50 or 60 officials at a time, trying to understand each and every aspect of the BIA. And I just wanted to pass on that appreciation and conclude by saying that we'll support this unanimous consent.
Okay, and I've got now, thank you, PS Beach, MP Albus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And while I also have to concur that, to all the public officials, as well as all the people that have worked hard around this table on C-19 to make sure it receives proper scrutiny, I think that we need to take a step back and just take a look at many of the changes that have happened here. We have changes to the DTC, the disability tax credit, when it comes to life-sustaining therapy, the changes to direction and control elements of the bill, coupled that with the Excise Act changes, as well as the foreign buyers changes. Now we've hit the express entry changes, Mr. Chair, and now we've hit EI. This used to be a government that prided itself on consultation. Yet we had witness after witness come and say that the government didn't do its work. We also have heard commitment after commitment from the government to modernize the EI system. And what do we see? We see, in this case, that they obviously didn't do their homework. So while I certainly can appreciate that PS Beach is, going to be joining in taking away from this bill, this section, the HUMA committee and now this committee has found the government's work on this particular element of the file to be atrociously lacking in both depth and in consultation. So, Mr. Chair, I certainly have never seen a Budget Implementation Act. This is a very large one, coming from a government that originally said that it would not do omnibus bills. They've certainly thrown in many measures that I believe don't belong in a Budget Implementation Act. But for the government to try to proceed so haphazardly without having the support of a program that so many Canadians depend on really shows how far this government has, how much the tin ear of this government has become. Again, from the government that said that it would consult and be open and transparent to suddenly now where they're having to vote out large segments of their own Budget Implementation Act. I really hope the Minister of Finance does a good debrief post-mortem, because C-19 is no longer the bill that it once was. And again, I would simply point out that the Finance Minister, while she does have, and I do appreciate her ongoing service and commitment to Canada, I would say that the Prime Minister, by giving her two main focuses of both being Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, I would say it shows that there is just too much on her plate, and she's not focused well enough that they can write EI legislation and have it at least be able to get it through their committees. So, Mr. Chair, I really do hope the government takes the summer to reconsider this and to spend the time necessary to actually find a path forward on these EI changes, because it is an important program, and Canadians put a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of faith that when they need that program, that it's going to be there for them. And so far, the modernization efforts of this government are all political rhetoric and not enough action. Thank you. I think members get the flavor that Conservatives will be voting against.
Thank you, MP Albus. So members shall clauses 454 to 502 carry?
No.
Hear a no. Okay, defeated. Okay. So members, shall the short title carry?
Avec dissidence.
Carried on division. Shall Schedule 1 carry?
Avec dissidence.
Carried on division. Shall Schedule 2 carry?
Avec dissidence.
Merci. Carried on division. Shall Schedule 3 carry?
Avec dissidence.
Carried on division. Shall the title carry?
Adopté.
Dissidence. Avec dissidence.
Carried on division. Okay, shall the bill as amended carry?
No.
Avec dissidence.
On division.
Carried on division. Shall the chair report the bill as amended to the House?
No.
Yes.
Carried on division. And shall the committee order a reprint of the bill as amended for the use of the House at report stage?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, carried.
Point of information, or point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of
I just
order?
didn't, perhaps as a appropriate time, but I wanted to mention, just given that this is the second time I've went through clause by clause, I did find it helpful when there was a couple interventions by the officials that flagged some challenges with the drafting. So I just wanted to say that certainly I appreciate their expertise. We all end up having to live with poorly drafted legislation, and so some that gets done by individuals with less drafting experience. So appreciate the interventions certainly by Mr. Zah and others, and would empower them to feel free to highlight challenges in the future as well. I think that makes things go more smoothly for us and prevents us from having to come back and amend legislation after it's been passed. So I just wanted to say thank you to the officials from that perspective.
Thank you, MP Chambers. A good point that you bring up. Officials are aware or should be aware that they can reach out to the clerk electronically. They could send an email, etc., clerk, and receive that and distribute that, so that we are ahead of things, hopefully, and when we do this again down the road, and hopefully things that listen. Let me say that members, I thought it ran very smoothly for the most part. I want to thank the legislative clerk, our clerk, the clerks, the interpreters, everybody here that really came together, including especially all the members, and for all your interventions that got us to this point. So on that, I think we have a beautiful spring evening out there. Shall we adjourn? We're adjourned.